module to consumers outright, and $300 and some odd to manufacturers who choose to use their module in their decoder or their receiver, you will immediately start adding up the profits. There are over, I guess you need this figure too, there are over 3 million decoders in the marketplace. Now, you don't have to believe me. I'm sure many of you don't. But if you were to force GI, and it's unlikely you're going to be able to do that without a court case, if you were to be able to get to their records and see the number of U-24s that were made by NCR, then you, and for that matter, the number of U-7s made, these are special customized chip that GI has had made for them. And the U-7 that Texas Instrument made, you would know as we do that they have made in excess of 3 million. Now, these are old numbers. In point of fact, it could come closer to 4 million to right now as to the number of videociphers in the field today. But programmers being what you are, I hope this tape will convince you once and for all that you've been had. And take the 2 hours it takes to view the tape, to see the depth of the technology that the hackers have used in compromising the Videocipher, and understand that there's a far greater goal and profit margin yet to be had by these hackers if you allow the introduction of a plus or an RS module in the field today. Because as sure as I sit here, and as sure as you sit there, the plus has been broken and the RS will be broken. Because although GI enjoys making a tremendous amount of money, and you programmers enjoy money, so do other people. And when you recognize that a hacker who is able to emulate the plus technology in an old board, meaning an old Videocipher board, and is able to sell that technology at a reasonable cost, probably under $300 or thereabouts, and you realize that there are over 3 million decoders in the marketplace, and you multiply the two figures, you come out to almost $900 million a hacker will make who compromises or creates a plus out of an old board. Well, folks, I think you know as well as I do, there are many corporations that would be more than willing to involve themselves in this technology to come up with those kind of revenues. It may not come out the front door of General Electric or Thomson or Sony, but it damn well will probably come out the back door. Because $900 million is hard to walk away from. And do the hackers that you and I are going to see on this tape have the capability? I don't know. Some of them may have already compromised the plus. But I do know this. Once you view the tape and once you understand what they know and how much they know and how well they put what they know to use and how they profited from it, then you will understand that the security and the reliability of the Videocipher to deliver your program to the consumers, unimpeded and without being compromised, is a fact that is never going to happen. So before we get into the final phase of all this, we've already come to the end. Let's start from the beginning. And the beginning is I guess the beginning we already have done in the Old Testament and the New Testament. But we will bring you up quickly into the 032 technology. How was the 032 compromised so easily by the hackers? And where did it go from there? Before we actually go right there, let us start off with some of the technology that was some of the more creative product in the market. And I guess we should start with Future Vision, because they were one of the very first ones that were very sophisticated about marketing their compromises. They actually had a security data port chip that went with their software so that the chippers could not pass around their software among other chippers. Yes, chippers don't like being ripped off either.
Oh.
Go ahead.
The Canadian Club chipset is a chipset that is made to run on the 320 boards, the 032s or the -7s or the all kinds of names people have for them, but that's its purpose. It's a system that will work on the new boards and work very nicely. Now, this is their original documentation that I've been looking over, and I have an update which we'll get to in a second. I just want to bring to your attention one thing that I find very, very outstanding with the Canadian Club package, and that is what you're looking at right here, the documentation. It's very precise, it's well laid out, it's done on a laser printer in many different type styles. It gives you plenty of descriptions of each screen and what it should be doing, and what to expect, so on and so forth. It's probably a cleaner package and more detailed than some of the stuff I've seen come out of regular computer programmers for software. It's definitely better than some of the stuff I've seen in this business. Sometimes you get something like this in a box, and they expect you to be able to, pull keys and load boards and everything from 11 lines of a quarter of a page here with grease on it and everything. I mean, this is an amazing thing that they could send this out, but it takes all kinds.
What about the other package there, Joe? Is there two packages?
Yeah, well, this is the original, as I mentioned, and they have the update. Now, the update is more along the lines of what you're getting, and of course you have the same superb documentation showing each and every item that you should be expecting, so on and so forth. It comes with your IBM style diskette. By IBM style, I'm referring to the format of the disk. It is shipped to you fully encoded. You are given a key to access it. What that does is it decrypts what's on the disk and allows you then to have normal files that you're used to seeing in packages such as this. We have your different chips that do the loading and the running and calculations and on. You get a description as well as each file. This tells you what each file does. The Canadian Club system will run in two different modes, and it's pretty unique the way it does it. The first mode is what they are calling their auto run. The auto run is an auto running system that well, I guess what it does is it emulates a number of different styles which we've all become familiar with in the past. In the loosest sense, it's a 3M, Three Musketeers type, where yes, you do have to subscribe to some programming in order to have it fire up. In the strictest sense, what it is a clone. There is a clone number involved. It does require this clone number to operate. And I guess in the general sense, what it really is a modified version of the Wizard. What it does is it calculates the working key and inserts it into a Wizard file, but it uses the 3M as its end result, or I should say provides the 3M as its end result. Now, the reason it had to be done this complicated or in this many different ways is because the new U7 that's been put in the board they've closed just about all the doors. There used to be a lot of holes in the system, and they're not there anymore, so it requires a little bit more in the programming end for the people that make the product. It doesn't require a heck of a lot to do. It's a real simple procedure. It's a U30 kind of thing, 2-chip process. You socket your board, you put the loader chip in, which is called a new load. Pretty good. The loader, by the way, will run both the auto run, which is the one we're talking about here, the 3M style, as well as the 7742, which is a clone style, and we'll get into that in a moment. You put the loader chip in, the screen comes up, and let's go back to this great documentation for a second. Comes up with a page which is to load the RAM. Now, you can see here there's two choices. Can you see here? Okay. That you can load low RAM or load high RAM. Each one of them is to operate with a different type of key, different type of chip, I'm sorry. The high RAM doesn't affect the original box ID. And this is the way we do it to run the Three Musketeer. By using high RAM only, you inject a second set of keys in the board. That second set of keys, as I explained a moment ago, is used to calculate the working key, which is then plugged into the 3M portion of the chip, which operates under the original ID. So if you push the button and bring up the screen, it will show the original ID number. All right, now you have a choice here, and let's see if I can find it, where you can view, just to look back at it a second, you can view the original box RAM, or you can view the clone RAM. When you view the box RAM, it will show you the original ID number of the box, the health byte, the even period information, the tier mask, the subscriber keys, the pay-per-view bytes, and the period, the monthly code, and the service ID. It will also show you the same for the odd period as here. Now, when you press the number 2 and want to view the clone RAM, you get the same screen showing you the clone ID. So the box actually will now have two numbers in residence. The original number, which has been untouched. The box will function just as a normal box will, with one slight exception. It is running as a 3M. But if the box is unauthorized, it will go down. If the and of course the advantage to that is knowing that you've been unauthorized. If the box is well, let's go back one step and mention that the box is still available, and I believe I'm correct on this one from what I've read. The box is still available for you to subscribe to specialty pay-per-view device items, things like that, so that you or the customer still has the original ID. The box still functions as it would normally with its original ID, so they can call up and subscribe to a specific event for that night, a pay-per-view event, and not affect the overall workings of the box in any way, shape, or form. When they're done with that pay-per-view event, the box will go right on working just as it always has.
So if you're in the normal or the original ID number of that box, the only things you're paying for are what's going to appear on the screen?
The only things you're paying...
You're paying for only HBO.
Right.
But you only get HBO.
No.
Then you go to a different, is it like the data master where you can go into a different mode?
No, it will not operate like the data master. You can't switch modes. It operates only in the mode that it's set up to operate, which is a Three Musketeers. You will be paying for HBO, but watching everything that's on the data stream.
It's on that particular that working. Okay.
Right, on that working number. Now, the second way that the system operates is a little more complex. It requires not only socketing U30, but also...
I think we better back up. In other words, you can, with this software, you can actually do 2 different ways of modifying a board.
This same software package utilizes the same set of keys that you will get with the software package, as well as the same loader. The one loader chip will do both modifications. So you have a 3-chip package total to go 2 ways.
Okay.
All right. Now, the second modification is a little more intense. It requires the removing of the epoxy at U7. And if anybody knows how it's done, it's a lot more work. You got to remove the top, and of course, in most cases, a lot of guys like to remove it on the bottom and put a socket in. There's other ways of doing it, but regardless, whatever your technique is, you stick with your technique. You're going to replace it with a 7742 microprocessor. Now, briefly, a microprocessor is a miniature computer which has been dedicated to providing a specific function. The people who manufactured this board, the engineers who sat down and designed it, they utilize what we call prototype micros. And that prototype microprocessor is a microprocessor with an EEPROM built into it. Sometimes they're piggybacked as 2 chips, but in this case it's a built-in EEPROM. That EEPROM is burnt to have a specific code or software to it, and that software is what gives the box the ability to perform. It's the controls for the whole box. It gives it its routine, its unique ID. That's where your seed keys are located, so on and so forth. Now, there's, well, the second method, which is replacing the microprocessor with the 7742, again, is a little more detailed. In addition to removing all the epoxy, you must burn a 7742 to have the information you want to put in it. Again, there's a specific program which comes with the software package, the keys which come with the software package, and that changes the ID of the box permanently. The original ID is now lost. You'll never see it again. The box is purely a cloned box. It will operate as a clone box always does.
That's a 40-leg chip, and how do you burn it with most people only have 28 legs?
Okay. Here's a diagram provided by the Canadian Club people showing a 40-pin 7742. Now, there's a lot of pins on this microprocessor which are utilized when the microprocessor portion is being done up in a board. However, in order to program it, we only have to access the certain pins that directly correlate to the program portion, or the EEPROM portion. And you can see here that, for example, pin 6 it now becomes pin 1, pin 7 now becomes pin 2, pin 8, 3, so on and so forth. And there's a chart here that breaks it all down, explains it all, converts it over to a 24-pin type socket. So what you can do is make up a little breadboard, or you can piggyback it any way you want to do it. And yeah, you'll have a lot of pins on this 7742 which are not going to be used, but it's not necessary to program it. By converting it to a 24-pin socket, you program it as a 2732 chip, which can be done with the same EEPROM programmer you use for your 27128s, your Sunshine or any of those types. You bring up the menu and you request 2732A, and you utilize the program that they give you in here to, let's see, where is it? There's a file called 7742, which is the 7742 file for clone-style boards. What that does is it programs the 7742. Now, there's a little bit of data that has to be put into it, and that is given in detail in the book, how to do it and where to put the information. Again, very, very well laid out. They give you the exact locations of everything and anything you need to know, or anything you need to do. Getting back to this thing for a second, now that you've got the chip loaded with its program, You take it, you put it in the board, then you put the same loader chip in we used a few moments ago on the 3M style. You put it in the U30 socket. You follow the instructions to load both low and high RAM, as opposed to just high RAM on the 3M style. Tells you it's loaded right on the screen. Take it out, and you put the 7742 run chip in. So just to recap for a second, you have the new load, which is the loader for both chips. You have the CAN Auto Run, which is the Canadian Club Auto Run chip, which is the run chip for the 3M style, where you need to subscribe to a package of some type or a programming source of some type to get started. And then the 7742 run, which is the clone style. And again, the clone does require the changing of the microprocessor. Now, it's a lot more work. There's a lot more exposure for you to do it. You're removing a lot more epoxy. There's more pieces under here to damage. You have all to do to be able to do a U30 cleanly every time. I mean, you know, everybody gets caught with their pants down once in a while on these things. And I've seen some real horrors.
I believe the next product, you will agree with me, is probably the most sophisticated and the best thought out product in the market. It was called Data Master. And it was unique to all chippers because it actually not only gave the consumer or the dealer the opportunity to run pirated software, it actually also made it very difficult for anyone to detect it existed without removing the module from the board. Because, well, see it from the tape. Now, this is in the stock mode, I believe, and let me get a piece of tape because I don't want. Oh, the ID number can go out, I guess, because that's already been turned off. So I don't guess that matters, does it? Set up 1 and set up 0. Signal blocked. No hits. You know. Now, I want to go in. Oh, let's see a text. You got text up there. You got message. The message, by the way, this is apparently supposed to be something else, and this will be changed on yours. I got one of the first ones off the line, so you won't get A's if you get one of these. For those of you that order this, won't be getting that anyway. Nor will anybody else, I guess. Next program. Okay, now, in view. Can't view anything because there's nothing there. But if I go back to setup mode and hit 3 for my rating ceiling, and I enter 1, which I've entered. I don't want 2 ones. Well, that's the wrong password. Okay, let me do it again. 1, and enter. It puts me into a special program, setup program. So I hit setup again, and now I was in stock U30 mode. I want to switch modes, so we'll make that 1. All right, now I've switched it to, I think it was set up for clone, so probably if I were to turn up the sound, I'd have sound. Now if I want to get rid of that, of course, I just hit the view button and it's gone. Now, turn that off. Show you some of the other things you can do with setup. Setup, I got to go back to, there's a way to go around that's faster, but he told me, but I forgot how to do it. And I'll have to find out because it's obviously a pain. Let's take a look at what long setup is. We're in the 2. This is a group of functions that I move to find whatever I want to do with the arrows. Now, you got special function. What is special function? I think it's what I'm in right now. Let me see it. Let's see it. What is it? Oh, that's what I was in. Okay. Let me go back to 2. All right, now hit my arrow. I can be in normal setup menu, the installation menu, select wizard keys, view automatic wizard. This is an automatic wizard. Because you have it has an ID number and a set of seed keys, it creates the working key for you, so you don't have to be putting the working key in every month. You can view all the wizard keys. You can enter wizard keys. Let's go back to view wizard keys. Okay, you want to view them? There's the view, and we hit enter. And there are the wizard keys. I have nothing set up for 4, 5, 6, and 7. And 8, it was just a hash total. I was fooling with that, playing with it. And 3 is just a copy of 2. 1 and 2 are automatic. It automatically goes to 1 and 2 to check for wizards. And if they work, then they work. If not, then you can manually go up and hit 3, 4, or 5, whatever you want to do. Now, back to the wrong setup. Now I can enter wizard keys. I can change channel keys. I can view monthly data. I can enter monthly data. I can view the RAM. I can write to RAM. And open. See, I can enter seed keys, reset Videocipher, and open. There's 5 more open files. They haven't been loaded yet, as I understand it, because there's nothing they want to put in it. Well, this, you got to remember, this is all coming out of one chip. So now you can write your RAM with this one chip. And you just have to type in the address. I don't want to write to it because I don't know how to write to it, but just do, okay, we could do 6602, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what, I know there's a number you're supposed to know. Okay, there's 6620. Now, I guess you can move it. Oh, okay, this shows me how I can write to it. In other words, that's what I'm writing. And it even has a help menu. So if I want help, I just press help. And that comes across the screen to scroll. It says, this is a RAM writer mode. It tells you can. Now, folks, this is on one chip on your Videocipher. You put this in U30, and this is what happens. Now, those of you that may not want to have all these features, you can buy this chip without those features in it. You can buy it with just features in it so your customers can do his own RAM and his own wizard and his own ID and seed keys if you want. But that's up to you. Anyway, I would show you more RAM image if I knew what to look for, but I don't. So let me go back to setup. And let's go back to the wrong program, which is 2. And we were at RAM write. Let's go backwards. We're using the left arrow. RAM view mode. Well, we'll look at the RAM. I don't think we want to look at RAM because I think it has information in it that I don't think we want to have out. Monthly data. I think that's another place. Well, let's see. I don't know whether there's let me put this on the screen just in case there's something that's going to come up that we don't want to go out. Because no sense giving GI more information. They don't know, not that they know how to do anything with it, but they might get smart and learn something. All right, enter. All right, authorization. Well, we can take this off because this just says. Okay, so you can have 2 ID numbers. So you can have which ID number? A preview or your stock? Let's take a look at one. Okay, you can either look at this month's or last month's or next month's. Okay. We're not going to do that because very possibly we'll put out information that we shouldn't be putting out. Anyway, who wants this and why do you want it? Well, certainly those of you that already have a chipboard should want it because it gives you total control over your board and you don't have to, you can authorize yourself for the proper services that you want to authorize for. You no longer have to be stealing if that's what you don't want to do. And you don't have to worry about who's looking at your box and who's not looking at your box. You can be back to totally legal. Yes, you can do these kind of things with the legal board. I mean, it's not an obviously legal board if you're looking at Wizard and watching Wizard programming or programming you got with the Wizard keys, but that's a decision you'll have to make. Those of you outside this country, it's invaluable. You're outside the United States, there's absolutely, I mean, you have total control over your box and all the information in it. You don't have to worry about somebody coming to reservice your box outside your area. You can do it totally yourself over a telephone line. I'm sure one day somebody will figure out a way to hook a modem up to this thing and just download you information with this chip. But that day will come soon enough, I guess. The bottom line is, for all those pros that said you couldn't do this, that it was totally impossible, I think you probably all owe him, the man that developed this, an apology. Because he did do it. He did something that none of you wanted to spend the time to do. None of you cared whether or not a person could go back to stock U30. None of you really cared whether you gave the customer control over his system. A lot of you out there are, you know, going back once every couple of months and charging a customer $50 to reload his box. Customers are tired of that. Customers don't want to have to pay you any more money. Now they don't have to, because now they can go back to totally legal if they want. There are seed keys available if they want to buy them. They can load their own box with the official information, subscribe to the services they want, and be done with it. If they want to occasionally preview a channel to see what's going on, they can probably do that. I mean, certainly they can do it. It's up to, I don't know what the law would say about that. But I congratulate the programmer. I'm not even going to tell you who it is. I'm not going to tell you where you can buy this right now. But I am going to tell you that it's out there. And it's obvious to me, I guess it's probably obvious to the people at GI, that this guy knows more about their box than they do. And certainly more about the box than probably 99% of the hackers out there. There will be further demonstrations, I guess. I'll try to get Lee or someone else to do a proper demonstration on this thing so you can really see it. But the bottom line is, it does work. I'm in the preview mode. I turn it up. And, oh, let me show you something. This is kind of neat. For those of you that have been turned off, GI's turned you off, I think this has been turned off illegally, this number. Because, let me go down. I noticed this when I was playing with it. All right, that's CNN. But watch when I go to setup. I mean, it's running now, but let me go back to stock mode. I hit setup, and I want to go to 3. And I enter my password, and I enter, and I want special functions. You don't have to do all this. It's an easy way to do it. I don't know how to do it, though. And I want to switch modes. Now I'm in stock mode, and I hit enter. Wrong key. Why is it wrong key? Stock. Oh, press view to exit. Okay, view. All right, let's hit setup. 0. Oh, this is free access. That's why it's working. Okay, I think the last time I tried this, it had a signal blocked on it. That's why I wanted to try it. I guess I'm authorized for that. Why am I getting that one? Free access. Are we paying for anything out there this week? Let me go to 12. Set up. I only have, I can get 12. 14 we were on before. FL. I don't know what FL is. FL is a neat word, isn't it? What is FL? That's a new terminology. Well, that's 12's not coming in because it's not a scrambled channel. '18 is Superstar connection. But let me see what I am. Set up 0. See? Here, I'm authorized for it, but they've turned us off because we get the 2E count, right? So, I can't get it. There's no, this text, next program, tells me that. View, nothing. Okay, but now I go back here. Let's go back, finish demonstration. We'll go back to setup. 3, password. We'll enter our secret password. Hit enter. Now, the password could have been anything. Now I'm going to switch modes from stock U30 to the special function. Hit 1. I'm in the preview mode. And I hit, there you go. Now I think it's probably running, I don't know what it's running, a clone or I think it's running on a wizard right now. But I don't know the answer to that. I'll have to find out. And I'll let you know. Before we get into the next stage, I think those of you that have called here and those of you that would like to understand things about the Videocipher would like most of all to understand when you've been shut down. When has GI sent you that hit and turned you off? We apologize about the quality of this next piece. It was sent to us on a 1/2-inch master. But the information is valuable, and therefore, even though we're not pleased with the quality, we are presenting it to you.
Hello, I'm Terry Reeves, also known as VC Bites from the Blank Box newsletter. What we're going to attempt to show on this videotape is the fact that General Instruments Corporation, home-based in San Diego, California, is perpetrating and carrying out a fraud on satellite consumers in this country. Namely, they're picking ID numbers more or less at random, shutting them down with an electronic countermeasure, which prevents the people from watching television programming for which they have paid subscriptions. In the case we're going to demonstrate tonight, we're going to demonstrate two numbers that have been shut down locally. One belongs to me personally. The second belongs to one of our customers in Anthony. Both numbers have been the target of an electronic countermeasure and were shut off on or about the 15th day of December, 1988. For our shop purposes, we're going to clone two units this evening. We're only doing this in the shop. The units are not going to leave our shop in the clone condition. However, for the purposes of demonstrating that two units are receiving exactly the same information, and to prove that the problem is not a problem on the board of a board receiving bad information out of the data stream due to a bad chip, we figured the best way to prove this is to clone the two units to the same ID number. Okay, now to start our demonstration here, Jerry has focused the camera on the television immediately to my right. This is the unit belonging to a lady in Anthony, Florida, which was the subject of a countermeasure and has been shut down since December the 15th of 1988. This unit has paid subscriptions for the Superstar connection that are paid through January 20th of 1989, today's date being January 13th, 1989. You will notice this is a special function screen that you have probably never seen before unless you've purchased one of our evidence devices. The setup screen shows a number 5 function for command monitor. That is the screen we were just viewing. Setup 1 gives us the unit ID 01003FF3, and since this number has been shut down, obviously we have no problems with showing it on this videotape. If General Instruments wishes to shut it down again, that's fine. Signal level is 48 over 48. Now it's 50 over 48. Obviously no problem there. Our service ID is C4 and the location is set. Setup 0 on this device is a stock version 2.4 setup screen. As we've said before, this testing software we're using tonight was derived from version 2.4 software. We have our location set. That is the proper location for this unit. We show 16 addresses or 16 hits for this unit on the hit counter since the last time this counter has been zeroed. We are showing our current month epoch as 2DC4, which is correct for the monthly period we're in now. We have a subscription authorized here. However, we have a 2CDEF audio hold count, indicating that the board is not producing audio, and I will press the volume up button. Obviously, this unit is not producing any audio at this time. Now, if you will pan to the second set, this unit is producing audio. The setup 1 screen will show an ID number of 01876225, which is obviously a good number at this time and is my personal unit number that I have been using since my unit was shut down in December. The old number that was shut down was 01826B6, I believe. We will be loading that number shortly for demonstration purposes. We also have 4948 for service for signal level here. Service ID is A5 as we're running an 018 number. Our location is set. Setup in 0 screen, again, is a version 2.4 screen showing the proper information. We have a 2D A5 epoch, subscription service authorized. We show 2 addresses since the last time the hit counter was reset on this unit. I'll turn the volume up.
My scan indicates
It obviously is playing audio. For purposes of identifying what we're watching, we're on WWOR G1 transponder 15, and it's approximately 20 minutes until 10 p.m. on Friday evening, the 13th of January, 1989. Our setup 5 screen, the command monitor, shows the ID number of the unit it's in, the current command in the data stream that's being acted upon by the microprocessor, and this is the last ID number that was included in a command 2 or 3. The second line shows the key selector bytes for the monthly period, in this case A52C. Also, our third line is the tier mask for this unit, which is 01008000000000. This unit is authorized for the Superstar connection. This is information from the last monthly period. Current monthly period, we have the same tier mask and an 8D064BD2 EFE971A0. I loaded this unit with our custom software and put an FF at this location for our purposes this evening. If you'll come back to the first unit here, Jerry Eager, our cameraman here and partner in the television business, doing a fine job here tonight. This unit, if you will notice, has the same screen I just showed on my unit, which is playing. However, we have our C4 for our month codes because this is an 010 number. But if you'll notice, line 4 and line 7 have identical information. This unit has been taking hits off the data stream all day today. It has taken 16 hits, as a matter of fact, and is at the present time not producing audio and is in a state of shutdown. So what we're going to do here to start things off, Jerry, if you would pan back over to the set on the left here, I'm going to call the Superstar connection, and I'm going to ask them to turn this ID number off, and then we're going to load this unit with the old ID number, which has been shut down since the 15th of December, and attempt to turn it on. And our attorney, Jim Shook, spoke with Mr. Riley a while back and explained to him we'd be calling in. We're trying to perform a little experiment in our shop here and find out what's going on with some units tonight, and he said that you would cooperate. Okay. Do you mind if I record your conversation, just so we have a record of what we did here?
That's fine.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, if you would look in your computer, I have an ID number that's subscribed in my name. It's 01876225. I would like for you to turn that unit off at this time, if you would, please.
Coming up next on Channel 9, what's your last name?
Reeves, R-E-A-V-E-S.
Farewell, New York.
We'll be turning it back on in a little while, but...
Okay, I've got that off.
Okay. All right, now I'm going to be talking here for purposes of our tape we've got going here. It'll be noted that this unit did quit playing and has been turned off by the programmer. Our authorization mask has went to all zeros and the unit is no longer functioning. Okay, at this time, we're going to try to authorize the old number, which quit playing on the 12th day of December, which is 018826B6. Would you please attempt to turn that unit on, please, sir?
Okay, you repeat that one more time.
018826B6. The information displayed on the screen at this time for this number is the last information we had for it, by the way.
Then turn back on.
Okay, now we're showing we've received 6 hits from the programmer. He's attempted to turn this unit on. However, the setup 0 screen is showing subscription authorized, but 2C, D, E, F, an audio hold problem. Is that the way you were explained that the column 2 bottom row?
The audio hold problem.
It's got an audio hold problem and will not play, and you have addressed the unit 6 times, so we obviously can't turn that on.
Okay.
We have 01876225. Okay, sir. Now, if you would please try to reauthorize my unit number of 0187. Okay.
0187.
01876225. audio.
What GI has truly done by turning off all these clones of Three Musketeers is simply move these people over into wizard technology. Do you really think that when you have 27,000 authorizations in 1 month and you have 20,000 turnoffs in 1 month, that these people totally stop using the Videocipher? Of course not. They've just moved to technology that simply allows them to not have to pay for any programming. And what GI has done is taken food or money from you programmers that many people felt justified in paying. Many of the consumers that were stealing programming were willing to pay $200 and $300 a year for programming, and through the use of Three Musketeer technology, which basically forced them to pay for some programming and allow them to steal the rest, many of them were subscribing to Showtime's Extra View and HBO Super Pack because they felt justifiable in paying $200 or $300 for programming. But when GI decided to turn them off through ECMing, they said, we're out of here. What we'll do is we'll use another form of technology that allows us to continue to see all the programming we wish to without paying anything. Now, to take a look at this technology, I think we'll start here and we'll go through basically, I guess, the whole gamut of technology out there that has compromised and been able to enjoy free programming utilizing Videocipher technology.
So today we're going to be talking about the evolution of 032 fixes. And I guess the place to start is with this one right here, which is going to serve as dual duty. The very first 032 fix was released in January of '89 by the Blues Brothers. And what it was a clone. They had gotten into the U7 code and pulled it out and used that to figure out how to pull seed keys. And they didn't have a lot of sets of seed keys, so what they did was they stashed the seed keys off into the 7742, and they replaced the U7 with that 7742, and they cracked the glass window out and threw some black epoxy in there and cut a line so there's no way you could read it.
Well, wait, why did they, oh, they did it so nobody else could take that number.
That's right. That was
the only thing that was unique to that particular product was that it was a clone of another number.
Right. Well, at the time, it was also the only 032 fix that was available anywhere.
But was it strictly a clone? In other words, the board it was emulating was authorized for everything, and that's what they were selling?
Oh, it was no, not that type of clone. It was a Three Musketeer clone. The board, the number they had cloned to was authorized to 1 or 2 services, and they were pulling up the rest of the services from that.
So they had figured out not only how to clone it, but also how to have Three Musketeer.
Well, we already knew how to Three Musketeer.
How did we know that?
From the old 018 days. That technology was identical.
Oh, yeah?
So the technique that you use to take and calculate the working keys is the same, basically the same on an 032 and an 018 and an 0100.
Oh. Okay, so all they really were doing was putting in a clone number into another board, and it was the same clone number. In other words, they were doing everything in this particular chip.
That's right.
And they were loading this chip with a new clone number, from another board, and they were closing it off so nobody could read it.
That's right. Exactly.
And that was the original.
And they were charging, what, about $400 per modification at the time? And that was what they would charge a dealer for modifying the board. And whatever the dealer charged the consumer is up to them.
Where did it go next?
Where it went next, well, a lot of people were very unhappy with having to send their boards off to one particular source to be done. Okay? And they want control. They wanted to be able to do the boards themselves. Where it went next was the listing for the 032 U7 that had been pulled got released onto the market, and we figured out how to do what we call the Three Musketeer Wizard. And what I'll do, I'll grab one of those boards so you can see how that was chipped. And here's another half-size board, and this time U7 hasn't been touched. They've just got a ROM chip in the U30 position. And the way it works is a little confusing to explain in a non-technical way. The way it works is you take the board and you subscribe it on its original ID number to at least one service. And what you then do is you put the actual working key into the RAM chip, which is hidden under the epoxy right here, and you write the software to fool the U7 into thinking that everything is authorized. It was a rather new technique for tiering off a number, and it required that you had the working key here as well as having a legitimate subscription on the U7.
Well, that was good in a way, because that forced the consumer to actually buy some programming.
That's right. That's right. And it was very, very popular with the programmers as well as the chippers because of that. Because at that, and it was popular with GI, because at that time GI was telling everybody, well, the 032 is not broken, and as proof of that, take a look at the number of subscriptions you're getting.
I understand.
And people fell for it. One of the problems with that fix was that people don't want to punch in wizard codes at the beginning of every month. They would much rather have something that just takes care of itself.
Okay, so, all right, I missed that, I'm sorry. So with that technology, you had to actually put a wizard code in too?
That's right. You still had to put in a wizard code and maintain your subscription. Some dealers were charging like $50 a month or a certain amount of dollars a month just to get the wizard code to the customer.
Okay.
So the next evolution in the technology looks exactly the same as this evolution in the technology, and that is what they did was they put a clone set of seed keys into the RAM here. That way the board would take hits on two different ID numbers, A, the one that's in the U7, which is the original ID number in the board, and B, the ID number it's cloned to. And what that allowed us to do was have the board auto-update and always know the correct working keys, and people don't have to punch in the wizard codes every month, and they've got a system that's robust and secure and that keeps the programmers happy.
Okay, now up to this point, a consumer knew which type he had because of the information you just gave, but now, how does a consumer know he has one of those?
Well, a consumer really doesn't know. He knows he has to maintain his subscription or else it turns off.
Okay.
Okay? But how else would he really know?
And he can't hit a setup 0 or set up anything screen to find out what's going on inside to know whether they got that technology?
Well, yes, you can. There are a few things you can do. Let's turn this one on and see what we get on video. Is that locked in? What you can do is you can hit setup 0. One way you can tell is this top row of numbers. That's a pretty good identifier.
The location set, yeah. You wouldn't have that no. Okay.
That's a pretty good identifier, and that specific location set is a pretty good identifier of a Three Musketeer clone board that requires a subscription, but still you don't have to punch numbers in. Plus, let me just check some of the other screens here.
That number can be given out, or we got to block it off?
That number is a legitimate ID number. I believe you shouldn't block it off.
I should block it off.
What do you think? Yeah, you should block it off.
All right, I'll block it.
That's a legitimate ID number that may be subscribed later.
All right.
None needs authorization.
Okay. Service ID none needs authorization. What's the point? State your point.
Version board never been authorized anywhere before.
Okay.
Okay, so this is, okay. All right.
Now we can go setup 2. Oh, here's a definite way to tell. Here's a definite way to tell. When you hit setup 2, your second option on setup 2 is hit mode. Hit mode is primary and hit mode is alternate. That was to solve a rather unique problem that the very, very first versions of this software had, and that was since the board is listening for two ID numbers. It's listening for the ID number in U7, it's also listening for the ID number over here.
Mm-hmm.
What that means is when it's listening for both of them, it's going to miss half the hits for one of them, because half the time it'll be listening to the other
Right.
number. What this did, what this enabled us to do, this was a value-added addition that we did. When a board was first being subscribed, you'd put it to primary and it would only listen to the one ID number that was in U7. And that made it very, very easy to get your initial turn-on hit.
Right.
Okay? That was a feature that actually several programmers even knew about, and they were telling their customers, take and hit setup 2 and put your hit mode to primary and let the board sit for 20 minutes, and then when the audio comes on, set your hit mode to alternate and tune around and everything's normal from there.
Well, didn't that still have to take a hit on the alternate?
Well, when you're loading up the board with a loader chip, what you do is you already preload the alternate with the correct hit for this month and next month.
Okay, but after that board's been installed now,
Right.
at the beginning of the month you have to get hit mode. You have to be hit in both the primary and the alternate to keep
Right.
this board running.
But the board automatically takes care of that. When you have it in alternate mode, it switches both back and forth between the two
Oh, it does?
automatically.
Oh, it does.
Right.
Oh.
What the primary does is it enables or disables the switching. When it's
Okay.
in primary, it does not switch. It's just locked on the one number. When it's in alternate, it switches. It alternates between the two.
But when it first goes into the field, it has to go to the primary to get the original hit. Yes?
That's right.
Okay. So that's, all right, good, I understand.
Okay. Now, this software is actually still in use and still kind of popular. One of the reasons being dealers like to keep their subscriptions up because it makes the programmers happy and it keeps the SBCA off their backs, in a manner of speaking.
Okay. Where do we go from there?
Where do we go from there? Where do we go from there? Okay, where we go from there is a simple modification to this subscription style fix. Now, one of the problems with this subscription style fix is what happens when you've got a board and for some reason the ID number in that board has been damaged. The keys are blown out of the U7. Well, in an 018 we could always load up a dummy set of keys and just pipe the audio right on through the U7, but they fixed those holes in this U7. You can load it up with a dummy ID, but you can't pump anything through it that way. So what we had to do, if the keys were blown, was replace the U7 with a 7742. We're back to something that looks like the original Blues Brothers fix. Now what we do here now, we have audio. Mute. Thank you. And what we have now is we've got exactly the same software as we had running in that other board. Okay, with a difference being, and we'll just show you that, setup 0. It's got that same identification line at the top of the setup 0. And what is unique about this is that 7742 actually has a legitimate ID number in it. What it's got the same clone ID number in it as is stored in the U20 RAM. The software functions identically, okay, but now both ID numbers it's listening for when it switches back and forth are both the same ID number.
But that ID number is a clone number.
Right.
So
now it's a pure straight clone, does not require any subscription.
And the danger, of course, is that the clone could be turned off once one is picked up by, once one is taken in.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. And it was very, very easy to read the clone ID numbers out of these 7742s. It was very, very easy to build a little reader device that you could hook up to your EEPROM burner to read the 7742 information out. You'd have your seed keys there and your ID number there. So, but there's just always been a strong pressure to clone. People don't want to pay any money at all. Now, what you can identify if you have one of these is you hit setup 1 and you look at that ID number and it shows 0320 face. That's a phony ID number.
Don't call it into the programmer.
But, you know, there actually is one face out there.
No, there isn't.
Oh, really?
That's this face. I mean, sure, tons of people have subscribed to it.
But why wouldn't, I mean, certainly that could have been a number at one point.
Yes, it could have been.
I mean, conceivable, not...
That is conceivable, but I've never seen it. We picked it because it was a pun.
Yeah, sure.
Okay? Because what we did was we took a two-faced piece of software with two ID numbers and turned it into a single face, and it was kind of...
Is that Canadian humor?
Yeah, mathematical type humor.
Very
Okay,
good.
but you can see it's the same software when we hit setup 2, and it's got the primary and alternate hit mode. One thing with this software, when you're running it that way and it switches to that face ID number, which means it's actually hiding the U7 ID so you don't see it, is it no longer cares whether hit mode is primary or alternate. You can set it whichever way. As soon as it takes a hit, it'll recognize that it's for both IDs, which are the same, and it'll just send it out to both parts equally.
Now, let me just ask you this question. We probably should have asked in the beginning. Can you, in an 032 board, you have to run an 032 ID number?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's because of a change they made to the 7742, similar to the way with an 0100
You
board.
mean the U24, you mean?
Yeah, the U24.
Okay.
Isn't that what I said?
I think you said 7742.
Oh, okay. But, similar to the old 018s, not being able to run on an 0100 ID number properly because the U24 is blocking the data stream from coming through. The same thing they did with the 7-star U24 is they've blocked the old A5 data streams and 0100 data streams from coming through, so you have to have a 77. You have to be running on an 032 number.
Okay.
And I believe it also had a feature in there, and I have to remember how this worked because it's been a while. Setup 9, and that expands your menu to a non-stock menu. View working keys does exactly what the help key did. And then if you go setup 9.6, enter working keys, you can choose which period you want to enter the key for, and you can enter it in manually.
What's the purpose of that?
That's a throwback to the old Wizard Three Musketeers software that we did, and the reason is in case your clone ID number goes down, you can enter the keys in, and that gives the dealer, who otherwise has to rush out to 20 or 30 or 40 customers in a day, okay, that gives him some breathing room. He can give people numbers over the phone, and then he's got a whole month to take care of them. Okay, where we are is we're talking about the 7742 fix, and this minor variation on a theme. Now the idea, sorry, I should put this, I'll put this back down and I won't play with it.
That's cute.
Okay, the way this one worked, it's the same sort of thing. You put a socket in the U7 position and you plug this chip in. One of the problems and negatives of the 7742 was that you had to cut battery wires. You had to put these jumpers on. Can you see those jumpers?
Sure I can. Hold on, let me get over there. Yes, I have.
Okay. You've got one jumper to provide a clock to the 7742 because the clock generator here on some Videocipher boards could not handle a 7742. And you had another jumper here to supply power to the 7742, and there's a trace underneath the board which had to be cut to remove the battery backup because the 7742 did not retain its information in RAM. We just burned the ID number right into the ROM in the 7742. That was a negative because people didn't like putting jumpers all over the place, and it made the ID number real easy for other people to get at. That was a major point. So what we came up with in the industry was this module, which is a different processor. It's a Motorola 68705. Similar processor to what they use in a BMAC. And a group of people sat down and they wrote a program for the 68705 which exactly emulated all the functions of a real U7. Now this is a RAM-based processor, and when you plug it in, you don't hook up these jumpers. It just runs off the existing clock, and it works off the existing battery power when you turn the power off, and you load the seed keys into it with a special loader chip when you're doing up the board.
Wait, how does that loader chip get? I don't understand. How do you get the loader chip? Where do you put the loader chip? In U7 or
In U30 you put the loader chip.
Now this is strictly for the big boards, or does this also work for the little board?
It also works for the little boards.
So you'd use that U30 chip to load, and then you'd put that piece here into U7, correct?
No, you first put this piece here into U7.
Okay.
Then you use a loader chip specific for this piece here to load this piece here.
From U30.
From U30.
Okay.
Then you put the next loader chip, which is the standard loader chip for the Three Musketeer clone system, into U30, and that loads the U20 RAM.
All right.
Okay. Then you put the run chip in, and away you go.
Okay.
You're done.
So the idea, but still you had to hack out U7.
Right.
Okay. And the advantage to this was what? That actually the technology was more secure. Is that the deal?
That's it. Your seed keys,
Okay,
which previously you had hard-coded into your 7742, your seed keys were more secure now, because now they're stored in this unit. If anybody pulls the unit out to attempt to read the seed keys, the battery power is gone, the seed keys will die. Okay? Plus, the 68705 is a somewhat more secure processor than any of the 7000 series processors, and it's tougher for people to try to find a way to hack the processor.
Okay.
Okay, the next piece of software. Okay, early 1990, there was a fella out there doing development work on Videociphers, and he said, well, I want to eliminate U7 entirely. I think that U7 is redundant, and I think that we don't really need it to make the Videocipher work. And everybody told him he was crazy and that it wouldn't work. So he did it. And what he ended up with was something called a Guru. Now the Guru was a 40-pin chip. What you did was you removed the old U7 and you put the Guru in its place.
Which is underneath all that mess over there. Go ahead.
Which is right here.
Right.
Okay. And then you put in his special Guru run chip. Okay. And the device played audio. Now, this Guru was never particularly popular in Canada, although I understand that it made some headway in the United States. They actually sold quite a few of them. What was rather interesting about the Guru, and that very few people knew at the time, was that the contents of this chip, which I shouldn't pick up and wave around because then your camera can't see it, the contents of that chip really were a lot simpler than your average chip. Really, all they did in this chip was they connected certain input pins directly to a matching output pin. And what he had done was he had taken all the functionality that normally is in a U7 or in a 7742 or in one of these modules, and he had taken and moved that all into U30. And he had designed the software in such a way that the timing worked and that it played and auto-updated, and this was a straight clone with only one copy of one ID number in it.
So he literally bypassed the U7.
Right.
Or physically.
Physically.
He did it, but he made everybody
eliminated.
think you needed his particular U7 to do it, when in point of fact, that was not the truth.
That's correct.
Okay.
Now,
You didn't need the chip. Because that's different. Go ahead.
right. Now, his mistake was that while he was developing this product, he was dealing with the wrong people. Okay? And some of the people he was dealing with knew exactly what his Guru was doing. And what they decided to do, in order not to have to pay him for the chips.
So typical in this industry. Go ahead.
Yeah, you've heard this before, haven't you? Okay. Was they designed a little module, which was simply a circuit board with a header attached to it. I'll flip it upside down so you can see the header. And I don't know how close you can get to that.
Yeah, I got it. It's
But
just traces.
It's just traces, exactly. Okay, and that's all the Guru chip really is. It's just traces inside that hook one pin to the other. But the Guru chip is designed in such a way that if you try to find out which pins are hooked to which pins with an ohm meter, it won't tell you, because he's got some simple logic circuitry inside.
Well, he was smart in some ways. The only mistake he made was dealing with the wrong people.
Right. And in believing that he could actually control an entire marketplace to himself, which has never worked in the Videocipher industry, and it probably never will. Okay, so once this news got out, once we started seeing Gurus with this little module on them, and we realized what was going on, do we have a problem here? Oh, does this tape stop? Okay. Once we realized what was going on and we started seeing some of these modules come out, it was very, very easy from there. And some hackers sat down and they took apart the software and figured out just exactly how he was doing what he was doing to eliminate U7. And that was the birth of the Hotwire module, which was basically a rip-off of the Guru. Now what we did was we didn't use his Guru software. We took and acquired the technology and wrote our own software, which did basically the same things as the original Guru, but which again satisfied our requirements of our market of looking like a stock chip and acting a lot like a stock chip, which is something the Guru did not do.
So you went, but wait, I don't understand. The Guru looked like a stock chip.
Right, but I'm talking about, when I say look like a stock chip, I'm talking about on the screen.
On the screen, okay. I mean, when this was installed, it didn't look like, okay.
Right.
All right, I got it.
Okay, it'll never look stock once it's chipped.
All right.
You've scraped the epoxy off, you've ripped it out, you've put a socket in, you've done all that work. If they ever look at the board, it sure ain't stock.
Why didn't everybody just put U7 to sleep and just manually, instead of doing this, just hotwire it around it?
Well, basically that's what this module does.
Well, why bother? Why wouldn't you just hotwire over top of U7 and leave U7 intact?
Well, we'll get to that. Well, you're getting into the direction that we were going at the same time.
Okay,
we're
going to have to break for a second.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this board that I had used for the 68705, and I'm simply going to pull the 68705, replace it with a Hotwire module.
Now, Hotwire module, that's going to be no U7?
Right.
Okay.
So we've got now no U7 in the board, and I need the Hotwire module that's going to work. Here it is right there, right in front of me. Okay, I have to do, plug the module in, and then I have to jumper this wire over to a capacitor right here. I will pull out these chips because they're in my way. Now, can you see what I'm doing? Or
yeah.
That's fine. Okay.
Typically, Fred, you have your fingers in it.
Okay, I can't help it. Here,
well,
is that better?
If you bring the board over this way, you could.
Okay. Just, you just got to tell me.
There you go.
Is that better?
That's excellent.
Let's get some tin on here.
Where are you?
What I'm capacitor C23, which is actually the reset line for the old U7 that used to be there. Well, we're going to borrow it since we don't need it anymore to reset the U7.
There is no U7.
Right. We're going to borrow it to do some extra communication with the Guru. And there we go. That should be it. Okay. Sorry about getting my fingers in the way there, but right. There's no way around that. Now,
okay, now what happens?
We load it up. Plug it in. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to...
nothing in U30.
Right. The first thing I'm just going to do is I'm going to turn it on and I'm going to look at the power lights on my extender cable. And the reason is if I plug in the hot wire backwards, I'll notice it immediately by looking at the power lights. It's fine.
Oh, that's neat.
Okay. Now I take my RAM loader.
What would happen to your power lights if it was wrong?
One of them would be off.
Okay.
And just offhand, I can't remember which one, because I haven't made that mistake for quite a while.
Is that why you developed that piece?
One of the reasons, yeah. Enter load
Okay, hold
RAM.
on just a second.
You
We'll
want
see
to
that.
pop up to the screen there. This is the Future Vision hot wire loader.
All right.
And we'll hit enter. And that's that. And now I will put in the run chip.
And that's just to go into U30, right?
Right. I've got a bent pin on this chip. Let's correct that. Okay, and we'll turn it on, and we should have audio right now. Okay, it's taken a moment to click in.
There you go.
There we go. Now, one of the ways you can identify this module is it says hot wire module on setup 0. Not all of them say hot wire module, because we gave our clients the information on how to change that, but most of them didn't. Most of them just left it that way. So whenever a number goes down, we get a lot of phone calls. Now, I'll just run through the various screens that you can use to identify a hot wire and to see what's going on. I'm going to call up the installation screen, setup 1. You notice that the ID number that's normally on the top line just says gone. Because it literally is. There is no U7. There is, of course, a clone ID number stored in the RAM.
Now, can the dealer load that? The dealer can put his own number in this one too, right?
That's right.
Okay.
He's got the same basic idea as the rest of our software. Is he can put his own ID number in, burn his own chips, and update his own chips every month. I'm going to move to setup 2. Now this one, we sort of broke with our rules about making it look 100% stock. Okay, we went with setup 2 is mode control, and setup 5 enter working key is always there.
What is mode control?
Mode control. This is complicated to describe and explain. You have 3 modes here. You have mode 1, mode 2, and working key. Mode 1 is where it's running off of an ID number in the U20 RAM, and it's running off of a full set of seed keys. Now, if those seed keys go down, this software does not have any way for you to enter a new set of seed keys. It does have a way for you to enter a new ID number and something called a result C. The result C is a calculation performed on the seed keys which comes up with a master key which identifies that set of seed keys. And it's shorter than a full set of seed keys. Mode 2 runs off of that special key. Working key mode runs off of a wizard key that you have to punch in every month.
So you can make it, you can go wizard on this.
Yes.
Okay.
So mode 1 and 2 are both auto-updating. Mode 3 is punch them in every month.
Okay.
Now, there's also an interesting diagnostic screen here. We hit message, and what you see, the top 3 lines are the information for the even month. The next 3 lines are the information for the odd month. Do you want me to point to these things, Shaun?
Hmm?
Do you want me to point to these things as I...
Yeah, that would be better.
Okay. The top 3 lines, we have the tier mask, which is the top line.
Right.
This indicates that it's subscribed to first choice, which is the 2.
Now, is this, and just to stop you for a minute, is this unique to this particular product? 'Cause you don't have-
somewhat.
You don't have the address line. We don't know what address we're looking at, right?
Well, actually, I do.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
why don't we not do that then? Because it will take some time, and it's only unique to this particular product.
Right. It is unique to this product, but we have another product that uses the same screen.
Okay.
And it's very, very similar. Okay?
All right.
What we've got here is you can look at the tier mask that your clone number is subscribed to, so you can tell if it's been shut off. And this is mainly for maintaining your master. Okay? We've got the First Choice and CNN is what it's subscribed to. You've got your subscriber key, you've got your pay-per-view bytes, and you've got your service ID and your month code down here. Then for the next month's information, same 3 lines. This next line identifies the clone ID number that the unit's running on. However, it's encoded in a way that only people who know how to decode it. This next line is that special key I was telling you about, which is only used for mode 2. Okay? The bottom line is the wizard number that the board is currently running on, which could be a number you've punched in if you're in working key mode, or it could be a number that's been automatically calculated if you're running in mode 1 or mode 2.
Okay.
Okay? This is a real strong indicator that it's a hot wire module.
All right. Moving right along.
Moving right along. Okay. That's about it for the hot wire, except the hot wire takes us into a piece of software called the Jump Start. Now, what the Jump Start does, basically all we're doing here with the hot wire is we're jumping certain pins of U7 over to certain other pins of U7, basically bypassing it. But what we also found was that you could access those very same pins here and here on the board. Okay, which means that you can do the same thing without cutting any epoxy at all on a half-size board.
Don't even bother touching U7.
Right.
Take it from where U7 was going to. Yeah, of course you could.
Exactly.
The only thing you got to do is kill U7, put it to sleep.
Exactly. So I'll show you one of those. I've got one sitting right over here. Not that one. Not that one. This one. Let me move these boards out of the way. I think I'm done with them.
Why is the epoxy removed from the U7 on this board?
That's a good question. I didn't do this board, so I don't know why the epoxy's been removed.
So this could have been a board that came in here with a dead U7.
It's possible. Okay. From the looks of it, yeah, I was just thinking that it looks like it might have had its keys pulled, but it hasn't. I'm looking at it and it does not look like anything's been soldered to the U7.
Okay.
So let's assume it had it.
Let's assume it was dead and the epoxy was probably scraped in an attempt to determine if it was an epoxy short or if it was just a dead U7 that was causing the problem.
Okay.
Now, how do I get this out of here? Either way, physically identifying this as a jump start is easy. You can see the wires on the bottom. Okay, these are the main wires here. These move the data from one side of U7 over to the other side of U7. Okay, these other 3 wires, this one and this one and this one, are the extra handshaking lines. This wire here is what holds the U7 in its sleep mode, basically disabling it. Okay, now we'll actually show you this board running. It's already been loaded up.
What is the sacrifice by doing this? What do you lose? Is there anything that you've compromised? Because I mean, why do people spend $100 to have a 7742 put in place of their U7 when their U7 is bad? You
lose nothing.
So it's just because of the lack of technology of the service center that's doing it?
That's right. Some people might believe in a 7742, or they might not have the facts or the technology to be able to jumpstart it. You actually gain because you do not have to remove the U7, and you do not take the risk of cutting any traces. There's quite a large gain to this jumpstart software.
Okay, so go ahead.
Okay, and that's also a gain over the old Guru chip. You no longer have to remove the U7. Okay, around the same time that we came out with this Jumpstart, a number of other companies were coming out with software that worked in similar ways, but looked a lot more complicated.
Did they do this just because they didn't know any better, or did they do this because they actually were trying to just fool the buying public as to what was really going on?
Yes and no. No and yes. Okay. They knew what was going on when they designed these things, because these things function with practically identical technology to the Guru in that they simply bypass U7. Okay? What they do, however, is they use a 68705 processor, okay, and they have a ribbon cable which you attach over to this chip here, which is where we wire our wires to, and this module itself sits on top of the U30, okay, and this 68705...
So it just plugs into U30 right here?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and this 68705, what it does is it translates, it listens for certain addresses being accessed on the U30 and translates them into commands to send over to the U5 or the U4, yeah, U5.
What's the advantage of one over the other?
Well,
other than the fact that this obviously costs money, that's which is a disadvantage. What's the advantage of that product?
what's the advantage of this product? I can't see any. The advantage of this product...
better control, or it didn't...
No, the
was more
advantage...
secure?
The advantage to this product would be, while these products were not more secure, I have never run into one of these that I was not able to find the seed keys in. I've always been able to do that.
Now, would this product allow the dealer to load his own unit ID number and seed keys in as well?
I do not know. I never dealt with these products except to the stage of when one of these products came into my shop, I pull this board off and I do it up as a jump start and send it back out.
Okay.
Okay? What these products, the advantage these products had, and the reason some people used them, it gave them control. It meant that they got to sell a module for every board that was done.
Sure.
So they got to make money off of each and every module that was sold. The next evolution really is the final evolution in software for the 032, and that's the one-wire jump start. That was a really exciting, really exciting development in Videocipher software. All right, this is a one-wire jump start board. Let me just unplug it. Now, I'll show you on the bottom what that board looks like. Now, this was a product that some guy did, was he looked at the Guru, and he looked at the 12-wire jump start, and he said, gee, I can do the same thing without wires, because U7 has a test command built into it that will take the input data from one port and just spit it directly out the other port, which is what we were doing with the 12 wires. So he actually managed to bypass U7 internally. The only thing that was required was there was one handshaking line which we could not control directly, so we hooked up a jumper for that line, and that's right there. Can you focus in on that okay? And that became the one-wire jump start. Now, you need a U7 that physically works. However, it does not need to have a good ID number in it. And if it does have a good ID number in it, the software does not destroy that ID number. So it's very easy to put a board back to stock if you ever want to do that. You don't have to kill the U7. You don't have to spend a lot of time wiring. It's quick, it's simple, and this is by far and away the most popular software out there today.
One of the more interesting aspects of researching this has been the fact that you programmers have elected to just not even consider probably one of the best forms of technology that has actually hit the marketplace. And that is deck tech technology, or the sun technology. And this next piece, although it won't go into great detail, will give you an idea as to why there's a great deal of respect in the underground about this technology. Because, frankly, if you were to use it, we probably, not we personally, Shaun, but I use this because I've been classified as this great hacker. We, the hacking underground, would probably not be able to compromise it. But, because GI has led you to believe that it's not run by the most ethical individual in the world, which is great. It's like, really, what pot is calling who black here? That you people have allowed yourselves to turn around away from that. And I laugh and I smile about this because I still can never understand how it is that GI has allowed or been able to pull so much over your heads on all this. How they've been able to walk over you and continue to walk over. I mean, the greatest kick that I have right now is the fact that GI expects you to pay for the upgrades. They're going to make $1.2 billion and you're going to lose money on this? Surely this is so common. This is, if ever a group of people were abused, it is the satellite consumer, the satellite dealer, and you, the programmers. All by one corporation. Think about this. All right. Well, anyway, take a look at the Sun technology because it's probably the finest piece of work you're going to see in encryption for some time to come.
Here we're going to take a look today at a relatively new product in the Videocipher marketplace. It's the first completely manufactured descrambler other than the ones manufactured by General Instruments or MACOM available today. It's made by a company based in British Columbia, Canada. The product goes under one of many names. The original names were Black Cipher, Liberty One, and now commonly known as the Sun Descrambler. We'll just kind of scan the board for a few minutes here, give you an idea of some of the parts that are on the board, and then we'll focus in on some of the actual devices and what they do more accurately. You'll notice some similarities at the top of the board based on the original Videocipher descrambler, but most of it has been redesigned. A very good job of hardware, I might add. The main area of the board, which most people are familiar with on the Videocipher, is U30, the EEPROM, as well as U19, the microprocessor which controls the board. This particular board has an extremely secure, the most secure device available on the marketplace today to keep their code hidden from hackers that have normally torn apart the U30. Here's a view of their microcontroller board, which actually is U19 and U30 all wrapped up into one. It's a small plug-in and removable board, which here we'll take a look at it from a different view. Here is one side-by-side plugged into the board. It's a very small multi-layer board with a surface mount microcontroller and a surface mount EEPROM. We'll focus in on it here. It's made by Dallas Semiconductor Corporation based in Dallas, Texas, and it is today one of the, if not the most secure microcontrollers on the marketplace. Getting the code out of here would be an incredible task. It has its own battery to keep the memory inside of it, similar to the battery that was used on the Videocipher boards to keep the data in U20 alive. This board, once programmed, can be reprogrammed and snaps into the board in this socket, and this then performs all the functions that we normally would get out of a U19 and U30 on a Videocipher board. Over here to the left, we have a small area which contains a Western Digital Corporation device right here. This performs the same type of DES decryption and encryption available and based on the original U7 on the board, except it's programmable, much more versatile than the original U7. These components perform functions that would be similar to what's done in U7 and part of what's done in U5 on the original board. Here is the graphics controller similar to U6 on the Videocipher board, which prints graphics on the screen. This section of the board, some people may notice, resembles the U24 emulator board because it really is the U24 emulator board, just spread out on this board. These components replace or simulate what was done in the U24 on the original Videocipher board. These components over to the right in this strip here perform functions normally done in parts of the U5 and U4 of the Videocipher descrambler. The small little area to the top, near the edge connector, are similar to the U1, U2, and U3 DAC and amplifier section of the Videocipher board. These Xilinx parts, right here with the sideways writing, these are programmable gate arrays, which actually makes the heart of the hardware on this board. The functions that normally are found in the devices on the Videocipher board are actually simulated inside of these components. Over here to the far left, we have an edge connector pin. This is what's used to download keys into the box. This is done by connecting it to a computer, a little different than your standard run and load type of chip setup. These devices here, which are reprogrammable, can be reprogrammed or changed in the field because they're socketed to make the box perform some different functions. It's said by the manufacturers that it can actually emulate some other descrambler systems, as well as their own proprietary descrambler system if they choose to design one. In a moment, we'll take a look at the Setup 0 screen and some of the other functions that are available by the setup functions on the box. Here we're showing a setup screen, which is normally accessed by hitting Setup.
We are approaching the end faster than we had hoped, but before we go, we have to address a few things. Let's first take a look at what it is the future holds in hacking. And it's actually computers and bulletin boards.
I'm using a standard, what's called a Hayes-compatible modem, and instead of dialing it through the Procom dialing list, I'm just going to dial it manually by typing on the keyboard the special command to tell the modem to dial, and the number of the BBS.
Now, if you have a Procom type thing, you'll actually have a screen in there, and you can pick the number out and say dial it, right?
That's right.
Okay, so
That's
we're doing
right.
that so we don't have the end list.
And Procom does that, but I just don't want to show the dial list. 570.
What's the area code?
0737. The area code is 416.
Because we're in the 416, we're not using that part.
Right, it's local
Okay,
to me,
fine.
of course, because we run it. So now the modem does it. Go ahead.
I'm surprised that the computer's talking to itself. In other words, is this also the computer that's also the bulletin board?
No,
No.
the bulletin board is in a completely separate location because of the history of Cat House. In the event anything happens to the bulletin board,
Oh,
we're going to lose a computer, that's it, if they ever raid it again.
okay.
Yeah, we don't keep any critical information on that computer. All customer, the only customer type information there is on that computer is their user code, password, and access level.
Oh, really?
No addresses, no nothing. Now, I've just demonstrated something here while we were talking. When you call the system, you could sit for a while and wait for it to say something to you, and after about a minute, it's going to hang up. So I'm just going to redial this number. And this is probably the most common problem people have calling the system, and they don't realize when you get the connect message, you have to wake up the BBS by pressing the return key.
Okay, so when it says connect 24, which means 2400 baud modem, I guess, that's the speed you're operating in.
Right,
You just want you to hit return.
right. Now it just wants me to hit return,
You hit return on the keyboard.
and it starts coming up. And now it's asking me for my user code. Now I'm not going to log on as a new user because a new user won't see anything. He won't see any satellite, he won't see any files, he won't see any of that stuff.
Now, does he pay by the month on this, or do you pay by the minute? How do you pay for the bulletin board?
He pays by the year. There's a yearly membership
So if he
fee.
comes on and uses it for 3 hours, he still pays just a yearly fee?
That's right.
Okay.
He has to pay his own long distance.
Okay.
Now I'm going in as user code min. Every user has a 3-letter user code. They also have a password, which is private to them. Okay. And it comes up with a nice little opening message. And it gives you a note. If you are applying for an account, be sure to leave your full name. I've had some guys... Is that still working okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, I've had some guys try to log on with names like Walt, Benji, Max, and Lucky, but I can't let them on. One of the things about access to this system is I have to know who you are, and I have to get a signed application stating that you're not a member of the FBI, you're not engaged in harassing people who experiment with video ciphers, and so on and so forth. And that is for the protection of myself and for the protection of other members of the BBS.
Okay.
Okay? Now this is the main menu. We've got a few options here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look in the mail section. Mail consists of private mail as well as public message areas. So I hit R to retrieve mail. Okay, let's start by reading private mail. I may not have any. No, the mailbox is empty right now. So what I will do is I will scan message areas. You can see just what's up here.
What are these message areas?
The lounge is an area for general discussion of a non-satellite related nature. The dish section is a private conference which you can only access if you're a member, which contains satellite related discussion. News is a public access area containing satellite related news bulletins. Wizard is an area where people can find interesting numbers and formulas and things like that which relate to wizard codes. Tech tips is very much, as the name implies, technical tips. Things like if a certain receiver has a certain problem, power supplies blowing up, that sort of thing.
Those names over on the side, are they of any confidence? They're on the right. Are they confidential? Because they were up earlier.
The controller?
Yeah.
No, they're not confidential.
Okay.
Like I said, the name of the user is on the system and his user code and password and so on, nothing else. There is a situation where a user might be concerned that he doesn't want his name to show up. Okay, and what we offer is for an extra $10, which is mainly for our effort to keep track of who is who, we will change your name on the system to anything you please. So if you want to be known as
John Doe?
Iggy Pop or John Doe, as long as it sounds like a real name, we don't go with aliases like the Big Bazoo or things like that. Okay, but you can go on. So you have no way of knowing if this is a guy's real name or if this is an alias that he has chosen to use. That is at the discretion of each individual user. Okay, we're just going to hit character turn to continue. Just do what it tells us. And we're going to enter the dish message area. So we type E, which area. Now if you're ever on this system and you're at a prompt like which area and you don't know what to type, just put a question mark and it will give you a list. So I can enter the lounge, dish, news, wizard, or tech tips, or I can put in a star, a little asterisk, and that'll take me into the next area where I have where I have unread messages waiting.
Okay.
Okay, right now I'll just go straight into the dish area. And we'll just read. To read the next message is very, very simple. We just hit enter and that calls in the next message. And here's a message from Ron telling people how to find wizard numbers. And let's see what the next message is. A message from Doug about Mega. Apparently he purchased the package and got ripped off, and here's where you find out about rip-offs and things like that. So share information back and forth so that instead of everybody getting ripped off, you find out quickly enough that it is a rip-off or it isn't a rip-off, what technology works and what technology doesn't work, and that sort of thing. Now there's 55 messages here. And we could just scroll through them and we could keep on going. It would take a while to go through all 55, so I don't think we want to do that.
Let's go to the wizard area.
Okay. We will enter the wizard area. Now you notice I just typed whiz and I didn't type the whole word wizard because the system is smart enough to know that whiz is unique and it means you meant wizard. Okay, we'll just read the next message, and that next message is the 0100 numbers for this month and next month. And if we read box 2, That contains wizard numbers for 032 boxes, 018 boxes. Now you notice how it stops at the end of every screen to give you a chance to read what's on it. And also F321 and F44. We generally have F321 and F44 posted on the system on or about the 10th of the month. Okay. That's about it for messages. It's very easy to leave a message. What we do.
I hope you appreciate the magnitude of what this means. That is wizard technology. Because I don't think many of you programmers truly understand what GI has created and what the hackers have created. It's simple. Even though every Videocipher in the field has a different unit ID number, and every one has a different group of seed keys, when all the numbers are crunched up, they come out with what's called a working number. And we in the industry know it as a wizard number. Now you just saw the bulletin boards having wizard number up on them. And frankly, a person could run a bulletin board in the Caribbean, in Canada, here in the US, frankly. There isn't a whole lot anybody's going to do about it, even though GI will say that the Cat House bulletin board was shut down, and I think there was a lot of people that learned something from that. So if a bulletin board, and frankly there are bulletin boards up and running right now, and I don't think they're going to have the same problem that the Cat House had. Therefore, for the consumer or the dealer that's computer literate, they are always going to be able to get the information they need to keep their Videocipher running, their VC2, not their Plus, and possibly, of course, the Plus 2 when it finally comes out to the market properly. But they'll be able to keep the old boards running for a very long time to come. Because as long as there is a cable box working under the data stream of a VC2, every consumer board in the market can continue to operate. That's very important for you programmers to understand what I've just said. Because in order for you to shut off the consumer boards, you are going to have to shut off all of the cable boxes in the market. All of them. As long as there is a cable box running under the data stream of the VC2, every consumer Videocipher can continue to operate. Now I grant you that if HBO changes out all their boards, all their cable boxes to Plus technology, you, the dealers, the consumers that are getting wizard numbers will not be able to enjoy HBO. But until that happens, they will enjoy everything that's up there. Now, you are probably saying to yourself, well, hell, hey, I don't think most people that have satellite dishes have computers. I suggest you look at the data, and you'll find that many do. But you don't have to worry, because the hackers are far ahead of you on this. There are now at least two numbers I'm aware of. There's one called 1-900-288-CODE, and there's another one called Hotshot. Both of these telephone numbers are able, and for a fee of $3 to $4, they will, when you call them up, they will give you the wizard number. And all the consumer has to do is put that wizard number in their box via the keypad on the front of the Videocipher or via the keypad on their remote control, and they will continue to run for 1 month. And so every month, somebody's going to have to spend $3 or $4 to get that number to continue operating. That's where it is, and that's the great fear that you programmers should have. Now, maybe they'll shut down 288 code. Maybe they'll shut down Hotshot. I'm sure sooner or later they probably will. But there'll be somebody else behind them. Maybe not in this country. Maybe somebody in the Caribbean will set something up where they have a Visa, MasterCard, and you call through on a lockbox. I can't answer all these questions. I can just give you some ideas. Ideas that not for you people to go out and create this stuff, no. Ideas for you programmers to recognize that as long as you continue to use Videocipher technology, General Instruments will always find a way for the hackers to come out with a product so that they can continue to sell their product. Now that's a very strong thing I've said, and I'm sure GI will tell you they're going to sue me over it. Well, I can only say this. I've said it because of the following facts. GI has known about the piracy problem, has made a fortune on the piracy problem. You say how? Hey, they shipped over 400,000 boards into Canada knowing every one of them were never going to subscribe to programming. Now, if that is not capitalizing on piracy, I frankly do not know what is. Think about that. They sent 400,000 boards into Canada knowing that they were all going to be chipped. I'll tell you something else. Some hackers that really know, they say GI actually manufactured a product 5 years ago that could have made their VC2 secure. They were actually the IC manufacturer, yet they elected not to use it. Why? Well, simply because you programmers decided to charge too much for programming. And GI knew, just as we knew, just as probably you knew, that people were not going to subscribe to programming as long as it cost so much. So GI, in order to make that product successful, and they needed to make $20 million because they had to pay off Oak for their lawsuit because MACOM stole the technology from Oak, and when GI bought the technology from MACOM, their agreement was to pay off the Oak debt. So they had to make money with it, at least $20 million, but of course you and I know they've made far more than that. Don't allow GI to capitalize on their marketplace because they will, again, as they've proven in the past, continue to stick it to you programmers. There should be no introduction of the VC2 Plus or the RS module because it's very simple. It is never going to give the satellite community the programming that they need to compete with cable. That is the pay-per-view programming that will never be made available to satellite because of the video portion of the Videocipher is so easy. Even if the Plus becomes secure in some incredible way. I mean, we all know it's not, but let's just assume for a while it would be. The fights, the baseball games, the football games will never be made available to Videocipher technology because the video portion is so easy to break. And always has been, and always will be because of the way it's designed. So, we've concluded this program. I hope this has been of value, and there will be a subsequent follow-up to this because it's needed. And we will continue, as we did with the Old Testament and the New Testament, now with Revelations, to tell you programmers what the truth really is, even though you don't want to possibly hear it.
You'll also notice on the board a number of components where there are no components. This is where there's the white writing and the little figure for the part itself. Most of these parts are for the Video PAL, which was slated to be put on the board shortly after its introduction. A Video PAL is what connects to the Videocipher board and your telephone line and allows you to authorize pay-per-view events and special programming offered by programmers. This board, it's now been approximately 1 year since this board was introduced by General Instruments, and no Video PALs have yet been put on the board. These components are still empty at this time. However, within the next few months, General Instruments is slated to start introducing the Videocipher PAL on the board, which just means one less component you have to buy and hook up to your system. Now we'll start to focus in on some of the components on the board, or compare the differences between this board and its earlier versions, the 010, the 018, and the 032 board. We'll start up here at the right-hand corner, focus in on some of the audio circuitry. This area here to the right comprises the audio, digital to analog, and audio amplifier functions of the original boards. You'll be familiar with, if you've worked on boards with U2, U3, U1, These are the DACs and the audio amplifier, which are normally found on the Videocipher boards. Although they made some changes in the 032 boards, the concept was still basically the same, that parallel data was loaded into the digital to analog converters, which converted the digital audio to audio in an analog form that you could hear. This has all been replaced now with this one chip. The associated components around the chip comprise parts of filtering and other control circuitry for the chip to amplify and decode the audio from digital to analog form. This chip connects directly to this chip over here, which is a chip called U7, which is actually the main decoding chip on the board, which actually generates the audio in its digital form from the incoming raw telemetry data. This is really just a cost savings on the part of GI. There's really no security gain in putting the digital to analog circuitry in one chip. It just makes a smaller board, less components, less breakdowns, etc. Now we'll start to move over to the main microprocessor of the board. This chip here, which is called U16, is almost the same as the original device first put on the Videocipher boards, which was called U19. Some slight differences are the original board had a TMS 7001, which is a NMOS version of a TMS 7000 family microprocessor. It has a serial port, 128 bytes of RAM, and that was about it. This board now uses a 7000C02, which is a CMOS version of the 7000 family, has twice as much memory in it, which is 256 bytes of RAM. It also has a serial port, and it runs at a little lower power, more current technology, a little more reliable in the field, but basically performs the same functions in the box that the original microprocessor used. It's interesting that GI would stay with the TMS 7000 family. There is such a wide... Since the introduction of the original Videocipher descramblers, so many people have become familiar with the TMS 7000 language and code and device architectures, etc., that it seems unlikely to me that they would introduce a product which would give us such a leeway or a head start in developing code or breaks for the box. However, it's a good indication that GI feel very comfortable with the security of the U7, and that by poking around with the code that controls U16, you're really not going to get that far with any developments in breaking the box. The next component we'll look at is U28. This is the similar component on the original Videocipher boards as U30. U30 was the device which was generally popped out and replaced with one that was reprogrammed to make the box perform the way you wanted. This is known as the EEPROM on the Videocipher board. On the original Videocipher board, it was a 27128, which is an EEPROM which has a memory capacity of 16K. This board, however, uses a 27256, which has a memory capacity of 32K, twice as much memory. The U16, if you recall, had twice as much RAM as the U19 on the original Videocipher. This U28 has twice as much memory as the U30 on the original Videocipher. The device next to the U28 is U29. It is the board's RAM, which is actually equivalent to the U20 on the original Videocipher boards. On the original Videocipher boards, U20 was a 2K RAM. This particular board has an 8K RAM. It has 4 times as much memory as the original Videocipher board. This will allow the board to store more data than the original Videocipher board. Such data would be information regarding pay-per-view events, different levels of authorization, etc. Just allows the board to hold more graphics, more data, more information.